Still am sidetracked, technically. Hi, how are ya? Okay. I was watching someone else's stream a moment ago, and sometimes we get, oh yeah, shoot. I gotta go do mine. I try to keep some, I try to be as regular as Bran. But, we get caught up. Hi, everybody. I hope you had a lovely weekend and that you're able to do all the things you wanted to do and have all the fun you wanted to have. Because that's what weekends are for. Our weekends of late have been dealing with one thing or another. But that's okay. Once those things are all dealt with, hey, the world resumes its turning, doesn't it? All right, so housekeeping. I have got a whole bunch of suggestions this weekend. It was like, hey, everybody that has been considering suggestions all came out with them at the same time, which is great. But, there's a fair amount of keeping up with them all. So that's okay. That's okay. I would sooner have lots of suggestions coming in and people feeling free and able to express those things and share those things, and we can all engage in that process together, than people not doing it. So you'll never hear me complaining about lots of suggestions coming in. I think it's fantastically fun. And the same thing always stands, by the way. If you, some of these one-page suggestions comes up, and hi, Dee Dee. If some of these suggestions come up for one-page ideas, and you want to try them, do them. That's super cool. That's I appreciate that very much, and because I like to see those. I always like different takes on stuff. Okay, here's the weekend's comic pages. Let's see. I got cheeky this week. I got up to some trouble. This is Dee Dee has given me a suggestion today of cat curling on ice. That's how I've written it down. Cat curling on ice. That is definitely going to be done this week because it's just too fun. Okay, so here's Friday's page. Friday's page was a 3-word suggestion from Dee Dee's prompt bag. And the 3 words were pyramid, kangaroo, and airplane. So that's this is the outcome of that, was an Australian kangaroo hero stopping a guy on an airplane from stealing a pyramid-shaped diamond. Ooh. So this was a lot of fun to do. It really was. Little mixed media again. I look at digital mixed media in the same way as it's similar to collage work when you're working with traditional 2D images that you're cutting out and matting together and stuff like that. There's no different when you're doing that with secured images, supplied images from other sources, and you get to do fun things though. Like there's this sort of transitional step, like you can replicate an image 3 times and then cut that image out with overlapping elements. So you've changed it to 3 separate planes and put other elements in between. But different than doing that 2-dimensional, because you could of course cut it out that way, is that it allows you the facilitation to stretch and warp those perspectives so that they overlap, which is kind of neat. Anyhow, airplane, the just what I just described with this aeroplane, so that the chairs in the front and the chairs in the middle and the wall at the back are all 3 separate layers, 3 separate planes. I'm going to sneeze because you've got too much hair in my studio, Corbin. Sorry, yelling at Corbin for no reason. I'm sorry. So that was Friday's page, and Saturday's page is actually, this is a 32-page book now. So this is what I was doing at the very end of the year. This is a book called A Village Haunted, and it started off as a suggestion of 2 kids go to explore an abandoned house in the woods. And so I just got so swept up in that. How you doing, Jim? I got so swept up in that I just kept going with it as a story and fleshing it out, and each different chapter of the book was introducing other character elements and other overlapping story elements into it. So, but this initially came from a story that my wife was telling me about her and her sister and cousins going to visit their what was once their aunt's house down the country road that had now been abandoned, but they knew this house quite well from visiting it, and at the same time to go inside was this terrible idea. That's what the initial start of this idea was, and it turned into a big drawn out story. So that is being assembled right now, and this is one of the two things that I'm going to put out as a webtoon or on a recurring basis a couple times a week. The first volume of Stream of Conceitedness, I finished it this morning, and so that's ready to go, and I'm pretty pleased with that. So Stream of Conceitedness is it's a stream of consciousness book where the main character looks like me, hence the conceitedness. And yeah, so that's I posted a bunch of images of that before, but now we're about to put the book out properly. Okay, so Sunday, I got to explain Sunday and Monday because I got some weird responses from people. I purposely did what I did on Sunday and Monday. I am purposely being a sneaky, tricky guy. And what I did was, this is Sunday's page. This is the suggestion from Gary Hodges of The Most Sarcastic Man. A man that everything he says sounds sarcastic, and yet he believes them sincerely. It was the, hello, Corbin. He's all upset now because I yelled at him for having too much hair in the studio. So he's climbing on me now to try to make peace. So that's what I did. I looked at this perspective of somebody that absolutely believes in the things that they're saying. And yet when you hear them said, if you're a different person hearing them say the same things to you, you can't really believe that. Are you being sarcastic? You know, because in their ideology, it is so ludicrous. So I posted this on Sunday, and then we had a nice breakfast with a bunch of the kids and some of the grandkids. And one of my sons said, "You should do the antithetical approach, Dad." In the way that's how my son sounds. And so I thought that's actually quite brilliantly funny. So I did. So that's what this morning's page was. It's the same page at just the opposite perspective. Because again, it still works that everything that this guy says, you don't really believe that, do you? You know, it's all based on the ideology, the ideological viewpoint of the person that's reading it. And so from that established idea, it sounds generally like it's the most sarcastic nonsense that you've ever heard, whether it's the first version or the second version. Now, my intention with this is I have a couple of other pages that I was going to do the continuing pieces of The Most Sarcastic Man in the World. And but after doing this A and B thing, I feel like this is kind of, it's, there's a good summation to this. I mean, the only things that are missing is the second page touches on corporate interests, but I have another page that I haven't posted yet called Stop Listening to Stupid People. It sounds really confronting, but the whole idea is that why are we taking political advice from Hollywood celebrities? Why do people listen to those bozos? Why does anybody put any stock in whatever viewpoint in life that Will Smith has? Come on, or Eminem. He knows how reality works. Yeah. So my whole page is about just think. It's the same sort of thing that I keep expressing through a number of different things, and that is think for yourself and stop listening to such random ideas from such random people. So I might put him in that page. I might keep inserting The Most Sarcastic Man in the World in all of these different pages, because to me that's hilarious. There's just something funny about a character called The Most Sarcastic Man in the World. So thank you, Gary, for this one-page suggestion. Now, to business. I've got switcheroo. You're going to get mad because I'm turning around. Deal with it. What? I'll pull it over. Okay, just don't bite my elbow. So the original pages for The Most Sarcastic Man in the World are here. Most of it was drawn on one page. And you can see the small elements that got blown up in some of the panels. And then the remainder of it was on a second piece of cardstock. I had printed it out to think about this for a moment, and then wrote the text down the side of this page for the follow-up, which was the antithetical view of it. And that's the original text for the first one. So, yep, that's all the bells and whistles that went into making that. So that's fun. It's, you know, you can kind of look at it as technically a way of cheating and saying you're getting 2 pages out of 1. But there's still all of that conceptual part of it. There's still all that putting together the idea and putting together the text and putting together the little nuances of everything. So, you know, you do what you do. So I got a couple different suggestions on the docket today, and there's some fun ones. Didi Wang, I'm at a stream this morning, and she requested if I could do a cat curling down the ice was the suggestion from Didi this morning. And but I still got, I said today I would do Rachel Joan Fleming's suggestion, or Rach, her suggestion of a child making a decision at a McDonald's electronic kiosk, which I think that to her is torture. So we've also got Jurassic Park, but with giant sloths. We got The Matrix with sloths. Can you see a theme? He listed about 8. So we've got 3 prompts from Didi: a mermaid unicorn fence, the day the dishes did me, the day the bed made me, the day the phone answered me, the day the car started me. That's another one. Oh, that's nice, Didi. Yeah, we're gonna get. I'm definitely going to do cat curling down the ice this week. It's too funny an idea. It's just too funny an idea. But so don't worry about that, Didi. We'll get that done. That's the devil concedes to God that the revolution was a bad idea. Just abandons the idea of messing with humankind. That's another great idea. So I got a whole bunch that came in. But I had promised that I would do a child making a decision at McD's electronic kiosk today for Rachel. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of either black and white, or I know that this weekend's pages had a little bit more color, but I keep trying different things all the time. This is a really fine point nib for dipping inks. So I'm thinking I've got that, and I've got a couple of nice little fountain pens that have some nice tips on them. And then you know me, I'm not going to just do 1 or 2 things. I'll end up putting ballpoint and whatever else in. But so I think that today that's what we're up to. And I've got some stamps here as well to throw some stuff in, because it's not crazy like that. But today's I'll better write it down and post it, because it keeps reminding me what I'm doing. That's a great idea, writing it on a post-it. Fantastic idea. What would we need to make that idea happen? Post-its. So I went to pick up the post-its. I picked up something else. Good job. All right. So today's suggestion is a child making a decision at a McD's electronic kiosk. I'm going to be honest. I don't like ordering when I have gone to McDonald's. I don't like ordering at those kiosks. And the reason for that is that don't trust the robots. No, it's just, the more and more we engage in those things, the more and more people lose their jobs. It's like remember when you used to go to places like Shoppers and the like, and somebody would be there with a smile on their face and greet you and bring you through. Remember that? And now it's, you can go ahead and bring yourself through over there and I'll help you if you need or something, sir. Thank you, 50-year-old kid. All right, so this is a fun one. This is a fun idea. Book, pages, pile. Okay, so, yeah, that's what I'm going to do today. What do we have? Uh-oh, things are happening. I've got a very tricky suggestion for you. Hey, Jim, good stream this weekend, pal. That was, I didn't get to see it at the time because somebody didn't announce it. No. Yeah, like how you said, it's a surprise one. So yeah, when it came up, I watched it. So it was super keen. I like it. I like some of the stuff I'm seeing. The Artcaster hosts meet their alternate dimension selves. Oh, good Lord. What's going in the book? Alternate dimension selves. Kind of denotes that I need to know those guys better, though. Well, I'll try it. I mean, with Scott, that's Scott Zirklin. For those that don't know, what Jim Luan is referring to is a podcast called The Artcasters, where 3 different guys get together and talk about art in general and comics specifically, and hosts meet their alternate dimension selves. See, Scott Zirklin is one of them. Josh Kemble is another, and Corey Kerr is the third for the core group of these fellows. And then, of course, there's all the people that tune in regularly and watch. And Scott has Cirquework Art Lab, and he's a mad creator. And so he wears a lab coat. And, hey, welcome to the Cirqueworks Art Lab, right? That's not a very good impression of him. I apologize, Scott. But so Scott's easy because the alternate dimension version of Scott would be himself as the mad creator. But what would it be for the other 2 fellas, and for Josh and for Corey? Because in my head, and this is just me, I followed Artcaster since Jeff Lafferty had it. You know, I keep hearing about Jeff Lafferty. I have to look him up because he gets referenced for a lot of different things that other people are picking up on. Sounds like a cool dude. So I'm thinking for Joshua Kemble, it would be the most square, boring art director, and this is the only way for you to do things. We don't want intuitiveness here. We want you to just specifically do this. You know, I think that would be Josh and you know, but again, that's a hard thing to say. Alternate, opposite, almost, right? But that might work for him. And I guess with Corey, it would be his love of this pre-Raphaelites, the ink illustrators, the Gustave Doré type illustration artists, to have him actually walk around resembling one of those. I think that might be funny for Corey, but that's a challenging thing to do, alternate versions of people when, you know, you don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. All right, so I'm going to try you out, see what color you look like. So I've got a bunch of dipping inks in front of me. This one is called orange, and this one is called yellow. What do you think this one is? Red. Yeah, it's like a children's program now. So the orange that I have here is a much different light fastness than the India ink orange that I have here. Look at the opacity of that. Gorgeous, as opposed to the liquidity of this one. Them some big words, feller. So, but it's that opacity that probably makes this the better one to draw in, so it doesn't get all smudged away if I put other values in with it, right? That sounds right, Russ. Hey, thanks. So I got a little piece of paper towel here. And, keeping it clean. So we can get some stuff done. Jim, if you're here, did you listen to more Gogol Belgetto on the weekend, and what did you think of it? Have I created a monster for you, or did it burn you out really fast because they're a really weird band? Today's music of choice is the Constantines. So I did a book about Brian Webb's life, the lead singer of the Constantines. A fairy tale book. It was fun. It was very, very fun. Okay, so today's suggestion is, I've covered it up, a child making a decision at McDonald's. But I'm going to come at it in a very fantastic way, a little fantasy storybook way. Corey's alternate dimension doppelganger would be totally in favor of social media's manipulation of people. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeedly do. Okay, so today's one page is it's right there. So we'll get crack-a-lacking on that. Let me switch out the old talking points. You need to listen to more of that Russian music. Be careful, you might be considered un-American. Even though they're all American now. It's not just Russian, they're Brazilian, there's all kinds of different... it's a very multicultural band. But its root, of course, the three core guys are klezmer polka. Gypsies. You working? What's your problem? Come on, make some marks. There you go. Huh? All right. So I'm thinking here. So this is a really fine point. Hopefully you can see the marks that it comes down with. But the suggestion today is a child making a decision at a McDonald's electronic kiosk. So I thought I would play with this notion and make it sort of like a magical moment. Because when I was a kid, 100,000 years ago, McDonald's used to have this fantasy land that they were legally forced to stop doing because it controlled kids' minds. But there used to be a whole fantastical element to it, and McDonald's Playland, and it was all thematically built, and there was something kind of sweet about it. And I mean, that's the hook, right? Let's not mistake ourselves. That's the hook. That's what gets the kids wanting to go there and wanting to collect the nonsense of it. But there was just something different. It's just, now it feels so blatantly dead and corporate. Why would you even want to go and sit in there? Okay, so I'm doing this light fast, water fast, orange right now, and building up. Is that picking up in the camera? Where's the camera? There it is. Okay. This is a really fine point on it. I got told I hold my pens and pencils weird this weekend. But I got it back. You know what I said to that? I said, you do. So, I heard this announcement that this fella I know who's making a film wants me to do more voice stuff for it. Yes. I'm just waiting for him to cut to do a little live action moment where he gets me to dress up as, Clarabelle from the Muppets or something similar to it. And, hey, everybody. 8-foot talking monster guy. Dancing with, I don't know, Linda Ronstadt or whoever they'd have on in the 70s. I think he danced with Karen Kane the ballerina from Canada. You know which one I mean if you're a Muppets fan. Kind of looks a little spooky right now because I haven't put the pupils in the eyes. I always find that when you're drawing and you don't put the eyes in immediately, the pupils in the eyes, it always looks, oh, what are you doing? Kid looks like a monster. Anyways, I had a fun time doing the two opposite pages from one another. I think that was fun. I don't know if I think Gary got a chance to see him. That's what the thing I always wonder is the people that make these suggestions. I always wonder what do they think when they see them. Which is something that a thumbs up can't tell you. Hey, thumbs up. Thumbs up, fella. So the nice thing about this is that it really lets you feather in lines really in a really nice, tight, controlled way. And it has this really elegant, thin line that it looks like you really know what you're doing. That's the benefit of using such a small nib. At the same time, really easily can you mar the surface of your paper because it being as small as it is, it tends to be a little bit scratchy. Which, by the way, my wife doesn't like scratchy things. I learned that. No, it's scratchy. All right. So the idea is this little kid is looking up with absolute wonder and amazement at the machine as he's choosing from all of the options that are on the fantastical menu. The reason that I'm starting with this orange base value is that I can add other elements over top of it, other colors over top of it. But it's kind of fun to draw in this way. I'll hold it up because I don't know if that's fair, how much. So it's these nice little sort of feathery lines that come together with this. But I'm going to do some silly things because I likes me some silly things. I'll show you something in a second. I was thinking about this on the weekend, and I was doodling at the table. It was a good weekend for me. I got mail sent out that I was supposed to. That's a big deal. And I got just one sec here. I got some me time for just doodling whatever I want instead of either a book that I'm working on, like a project for somebody else, or the one-page stuff, or formatting together a book. I finished putting together all the pages for Stream of Conceitedness, and if anybody's interested in wondering what that is, let me know. I'll show you some of those pages because they're a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing this book. I plan on continuing it. I've got actually 80 pages all done. It's the formatting part that's taking a moment. So what am I missing? Oh my goodness, Rach, you monster. I'm sorry that you abandoned Janet, but thanks for coming to hang out. I am doing your page. Child making a decision at McDee's electronic kiosk. I don't know who started this conversation on Janet's stream about me reading. I should read books on my stream or something, but I was going to be funny today and start reading the most ridiculous book that nobody really wants to listen to. Then I got doing some things. I forgot. Okay, let me grab something. Uh-oh. This is one of my bazillion sketchbooks. So I started doodling. Is this the one? It's not even the one. I started scribbly doodling on some pages, and here is these little doodles that I started doing with this pen. I'm like, I really enjoy drawing with this. I think I'll do some more of that today. But this is a sort of tight line that you can do. And I just started playing with a couple of different dipping inks. But I really like the idea of, you can cut in some white lines if you got intersecting lines, or because I usually draw over other drawings. And or I'll throw in some crayon, because crayon's cool, kids. And I had a lot of fun doing this. And this is sort of what inspired today, because you can get all kinds of fantastic little textures. You can develop these values one on top of the other. So we're going to play a little bit. So I thought I'd start this page off my pens or my nibs being picky. Anyways, so I thought I'd start this page off and set a tone with it. And I want to introduce this sort of fantastic element, like it's a sort of magical experience for this kid that he's completely caught up and enamored by the machine. And because when you set a tone in a storytelling that you're doing, when you set one tone, it's liberating and it's fun for you to switch the directions of it. They have all kinds of stupid terms for that today, and like defying expectations or whatever nonsense that some postmodern deconstructionist writers use to say that it's, oh, look at this, defying, it's just nonsense. It's just a story flip. Always has been used, always will be. The question is how it's used, and if it's used with any kind of appreciation of direction, or if it's just something dumb that you've arbitrarily thrown in without making sense of where you were going with your own story. Like, how do I express this? It's the cause and effect. This happens because that has happened. Not, and this happens, and then this happens. It's how you write. If you're writing from the backwards to the frontwards of a story, and you're having to fill in all these different little occasions that happen through your story so that you can get to the point you want to be at the back, what do we got? I call it deflecting focus. Yeah. It's stuff that we've been doing for a long time in story, right? But now it's apparently some novel thing. Really isn't. There was a great film that was put out by Ryan something or other, who did Knives Out. Knives Out is this absolute fantastic reinterpretation of classic 1970s era, 60s, 70s era whodunit mysteries. Kind of similar to like an Agatha Christie vein. And I read typos, says Dee. Good thing. As many as I make. You're not alone in that. They ain't good for the little corrective text that comes up so I can switch things just before I send them. So he wrote this Rain, whatever it is. He did this. He's done some really great movies like Brick and very interesting stuff. But then he goes and does Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and everybody says, oh, blah, 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 blah about it. I thought it was great. But he follows that with a movie called Knives Out, which is absolutely fantastic reinterpretation of classic 1970s murder mysteries. And then, be excited, he's doing a sequel. And every part of me was like, I'm not excited at all for the sequel. And the reason for that is that the novelty of what he had done once, the idea of coming at that again, to me, with the level of clarity and ingenuity that he did the first one, terrified when people are going to do a follow-up to it, because then it becomes having to replicate the novelty. And so this new movie that just came out, I can't remember what it's called, but it's got Goldie Hawn's daughter in it, and Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. I can't remember anybody's names. It's terrible. It's awful. It's an awful movie. And the only reason I say it's an awful movie is because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't bring anything to the conversation. It really is an instance of just the payoffs and the references, and that's an unfortunate thing in any of these projects. Okay, so where are you? You're the right one. I'll try you too. Let's see if you're an intermediate orange. Corbin, just come and sit down. You're the exact same orange. Same orange. So I've created a monster in this cat of mine. He's in the other room crying because where my wife does her yoga, I'm not turning it on. Where my wife does her yoga, afterwards she puts on cat TV where it's just birds and whatnot for however long. And so this cat now assumes that he gets to watch television whenever he wants, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So, okay, so this is a brown that I'm putting in now, and I'll hold it up in a second just so you can see, unless you're able to pick up on these lines now. So this is just building up. Some of these lines, some of these little. Let's switch that up in a second. Now, the reason that I put the weird stamps on there is because, I'm weird. And it allows you to explore a little bit more with the environment and the what it is that you're drawing. It steps it away from being yet another similar interpretation of the same subject matter, right? The trick is what it is that we do to be our own, right? Subtle, Dee. Subtle. This is Dee Dee's suggestion for this week. Cats curling on ice. Or cats curling down the ice, I'm sorry. I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that this week. I think Wednesday. That's Wednesday's. That is definitely Wednesday's one-page comic. And then I like the idea of doing the Artcasters one for end of the week as well. So when I put things down like these stamps and then I draw over top of them, I'm going to, because some of those little elements of the stars in the kid's eyes are fun, but it's a matter of embedding them into the image that I find to be something that I'm striving towards. Because it just sort of lets me make it a little more interesting, a little more complex. Like now that you can see as the brown and the orange and the red have combined in the side of this eye, well, there's something happening there, right? And it just sort of takes it a little step. It's the same stamp 4 different times. I've turned it around, and as I did each of these, it's a children's stamp. Put it on a stamp pad, and as I placed it down, I turned it each time so that it looks like 4 different images or 4 different turnarounds of images, but it's the same one. Making the most of what you got. And then, of course, the light hashing into the shadow area. But building up these different values. Typo word. Here we go. Hello, Frankly. Frankly Salazar has joined us, ladies and gentlemen. Frank did a video this weekend expressing his plans for global domination. It was really cool. Good video, Frank. Okay, so the nice thing about when the brown dries is it has a flatness to it because it's a fairly liquid brown, and so it just sort of flattens out. And if you want to have darker areas within the same color, you're just gonna have to go over it again, one or two, 3 times. What is that? I thought that was Australian. There we go. I thought that was Australian. Good day, everyone. I'm trying not to be upsetting to people, but I can't help doing silly accents all the time. And so I might have at some point read the Australian rumor with a really bad Australian accent. And if that upset anybody, I apologize. But it's fun. I had a lot of fun. There you go. It's that's why you only draw from this part up. Draw the lower part so that when the kid's drooling, or as my favorite word about drool is slobber, that it doesn't cascade down his face. See, if I want to get really cagey, I should have a wetness to the nostril, if you know what I mean. Anybody knows kids knows what I mean. Best comment I have ever heard, and I stand by this for the rest of my life, is somebody told me that they don't like kids because they're so wet. So true. I like other people's kids, man. They're always wet. All right, so just getting some of those lines in here. So the other thing that I'll do is, and I know that some people consider it sacrilege to just keep dipping the same nib from one reservoir into another, but I do try to clean it off in between. Another thing I like doing is so they see we all have a devil even if it's fictional. Okay, so one of the things that I like doing is that you can cut out with white some of the little details that you put in, like the little stars that are around the eyes and in the hair. And even though I've done some marks over top of those, I'll cut, and not all of them, but I'll cut the odd one out and pull it back up again. And what I mean by pulling it up is that when you make the star opaque, it sort of lifts it up from the surface again with all of the hash marks that moving around it. But rather than doing all of them, which one can do, I'll tend to pick and choose and only do certain ones. Because to me, that's a little more interesting. All right. Time for some blue. Got to get the bluest eyes on planet Earth going here. So this is a Winsor Newton blue. but it's a very pretty blue. But it's I left off putting the blue in until now and building up the other values first, because the blue runs so against everything else that I just want to give myself a chance to build up around it. Didi says, I just... Okay. Didi says, we're supposed to clean the nibs? Well, yeah, if you're dipping it into different jars, because otherwise you're going to pollute all your jars, and guess who gets to buy some more? What am I missing? I think I'm missing a whole conversation. I'm sorry for that. Didi just lets the ink dry and moves on. Didi does not do the cleaning part. I think it's cute that Rachel calls Frank Sal. It is. I call him Frankly. A quick rinse in the paint bucket, and on we go. Yeah. As long as it's water-soluble ink. But I'll try to clear the nib, especially if it's a fine nib like this one. If it's not, if it's a fairly big, thicker body to it, I'm not overly concerned. But it's just, this is such a fine point. I don't want it all clunky. I'm not really ever uptight about my materials because I do tend to really try to push them around and try to get the most out of them, of course. But so I'm going over some of the brown marks that I put down earlier, and the fun thing, and I'll hold this up in just a second, I'm going exactly over where I placed some of those brown marks. And the reason that I'm doing so is, in my mind, that brown and that blue together in equal measure produces a much nicer black than your standard black ink. It just doesn't come off as so thick and intense as a black ink might do. Have you seen the paint bucket? That's a whole other conversation. Slow down, Frank. It's a married nib. Yeah, have you seen that paint bucket? It's a whole other conversation. I saw Didi's paint bucket of gray water the other day, and I said, that's terrible, Didi. Of course, I didn't hold mine up and show it either, so because it's kind of the same. Don't hate me, Rich. It's just the way it is. I'm so busy making all the art that I don't have time to clean out my bucket. So here I am trying to follow the same marks as before. A couple little bits in there. And it's tricky because you want to have that, free gesture, that little weight in your line, because you're just moving it as you're moving it. But when you're trying to replicate some of the lines that you've put down of one color overlapping another, well, you got to be careful, and it slows you down, and it takes a lot of time. But the results are fabulous. I will be back. Oh, yeah. I'll see you guys in a bit. Neither of them two can spell. I hope they're still here. I am a typo king at this point. I feel like every second sentence that I type, I have to correct the sentence that I typed just before it. Okay, so some of that detail is coming through now in here. And I'm going to follow through on the nostrils. Put some of that in. Cleaning off the nib again. And I'm squishing it in the water bucket. But yeah, it's a fun way to go about things when you're just mixing things up, putting some marks down, putting some textures down, not being overly caught up in the wherefores and whys of it. It sort of allows you to, the affordance of opportunity, it sort of allows you to be able to get some different directions in an image that you might not have had if you had been overly concerned about how you allocate your lines and how you allocate your space and how prim and proper you keep your panel. Yes, Corbin, what? Just sit down. I'm not turning it on. So one more little noodle I'm going to throw in here. I'm using one of these cards that I printed. So I did the stamps for the stamp swap that is being hosted through Deed's stream there, and I used these old printing cards for that, old business cards. So I'm just using one as a blocker here. I just used the stamp itself or the actual pad itself instead of the stamp, like a silly person. I did that on purpose. But again, it's some of these little fun lines and textures. And of course, while I'm stamping on this thing, I will draw on this as well and utilize all of this information because to me, that's fun. Okay. But again, it's just some of these little fine little details that these little bits, these little under the surface nuances that allow sometimes an image to become more complex and interesting than it might otherwise. So that's why I do that sort of stuff. But there we go. There you go. It's coming together there, you know. All right, so a little bit of the yellow here, a couple little red bips, and off we go to the next panel. So the idea is about this little boy standing before the machine in amazement and wonder that he gets to order his food through a robot. To see the world through the eyes of smaller people is far more interesting than the jaded perspective that a lot of adults can have. All right, so just putting in some of these last little bits. So this is a yellow that I'm using now. So it's very close to the orange, but it just adds that final little bit. But there's our first panel. Except for I got to put the black dot in the center of the eyes. Hey, welcome aboard, Jane. How are you today? Where am I? You are this one. You are this one. Put your lids back on your inks, folks. Okay, so he says, and then he takes the lid back off again. So I'm just going to put that a little brown dot in the center of those eyes. And then in a moment, I'll go over that with the blue, which will give us a nice kind of a charcoal gray. Nice. I like to hear that. Feeling well and working hard. Excellent. Excellent. Where's the white? So some of these little things that I've got, some of the little surfaces, the little stamped patterns that are throughout the face, I can come through and cut into those with the white so that they just become of value. And so that these lines, as they move throughout, it just sort of embeds them in a little bit more. That makes sense to folks. I do a lot of weird stuff, let's be honest, right? A lot of weird stuff. So, you guy's a weirdo. Bring that white up again. And over here. Just like the idea of some of these little stars popping up with the white, some of the stars pushing back as the opaque red, and then that intermediate red outlined translucent star. It's just sort of that little variation. I love little things like that. I don't know that it means anything to anybody else, and that when they look at the image, they even, quite honestly, whether or not they even notice it, but for me, that's the sort of thing that puts the peanut butter on my toast there. So the sort of thing that, well, I'd write home to mother in a letter about it. Yeah. Everybody's going to call Frank, frankly, Sal now. I love it. That's great. That's his name. But okay, so there's that first panel. Now, it's not perfectly square, and it's not perfectly, cut out and balanced. But what it really, I can clean that up a little bit digitally. But the things that I wanted to get out of it, the marks that I wanted to put down for it, I'm feeling good about. So, and that's the idea, right? So the whole idea, the immediate panel to start things off, is to focus the viewer on the emotional impact for this young person who's standing in front of the machine, who's standing there looking at the ordering kiosk at McDonald's. So, so then it becomes a case of, well, what to do with him now, right? So I think that the next thing to do in this page would be to pull out and to do a wider shot of the young man as he's standing before the device. So I'm going to go back to the orange for that and use that as my sort of basic color for drawing it in. Now, primarily, I've been, suggesting that I'm using the dipping pens first and foremost. But it's me. I very well will put something else in here. But in the interim, I'm using this really fine nib to do this, which could possibly, my work could possibly be shortened down were I to use a larger one, a larger nib, of course. But there are some fun lines that you can get using a smaller nib, which is why I am. We're at a larger drawing, where I'm using a larger surface area, I would therefore be afforded the opportunity to use larger nibs in order to cover that area. But because I am using a smaller sheet, this is the reality of it, is that you don't want to use too big a nib. Okay, so and it just becomes a case of thinking about the allocation of where, the parts of the little guy's face and the planes in the cheek and all the different little parts of his gigantic head. Kids have big heads. Something to consider when drawing kids is that they clearly don't have the same proportions that we do. Just making sure I'm not missing anything there. I apologize if people say something and I don't pick up on it right away. Okay, I'm gonna get that little button of a nose. I'm sure people have So I'm trying to give him a bit of a perplexed expression on his face here. Not 100% pleased with that. But that's all right. We can fix it. Okay. Yeah, I was happy I got a chance to check in at Janet's stream today. I haven't had an opportunity to watch Janet yet. Trying to get out and visit everybody at your streams, so it's really nice. I like the fact that everybody's so engaging and supportive of one another. So I'm going to change that nose a little bit, and this is where the beauty of the opaque white coming in is such a benefit. Is that it really affords the opportunity to course correct some of the marks that we put down. If anyone has any questions about anything, let me know. I also find that kids' bodies tend to be, you don't need as much, even if they're wearing really oversized clothes, there tends not to be as much wrinkling or you don't want too much elaborate mark making in the form, because the less of it that you have, the more soft it represents the physique of short people. And it's just that tricky thing of just thinking about the placement of your lines and how they work overall. You can always go back in and alter things in your compositions. You can always go back in and change the direction people are facing. You can do so many different things nowadays with all these other technologies and things that we're able to use to facilitate some of the things that we want to do. They're just tools. So just getting this other arm down. Paying attention to proportional relationships. You don't want to give somebody a giant hand if they don't have one. Kids' fingers, where I tend to have these long, little daddy skeleton hands there. I think that the soft chubbiness of little people fingers is important to try to get that across. And as with anything else, just think about the underlying form. I did last week, I had talked about thinking of everything, breaking everything up into shapes, squares, triangles, and circles. And once you're able to see things in that regard, it really will liberate how you go about drawing when you just reduce them down to those different shapes in any given environment. And, over time, practice as with all things, right? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? By the bus. Yeah. So yeah, I find that drawing like this is really fun because it forces you to consider your lines. It forces you to think about the placement of things. That's why I like drawing in pen and marker and dipping ink, because it makes me have to be considerate of how I'm going about doing something. It makes me have to be considerate of any of the choices that I make in the process along the way. Think about the pressure of the marks as I put them down, so on and so forth, right? But you can do the same thing with a ballpoint pen. You can do the same thing with a pencil with no eraser. Just go. Just make your marks. Don't be too concerned about the mistakes you make along the way. But if you start lighter and work your way up from there in any drawing that you do, in any medium that you use, you will find that it affords you the opportunity for building up structure, making mistakes at the beginning, and not being so caught up about it. Don't worry about it. It's just a drawing. And at the end of the day, just draw it again, draw something else. Or in the course of trying to go about drawing it again, you're going to make decisions and see things that you might not have seen along the course of whatever it is that you're drawing. I think drawing is something that, sure, there are people that are born with an affinity for it. I've met plenty of them, and they're aggravating and terrifying. But, anybody can learn to do pretty much anything over time. It's all about how much one's invested into it, right? Okay, so here's our little person, and just going to throw some marks across his knee, etc., etc., etc. Here we go. And I'm going to put that other little pocket in there. It's fun to remember to put the seams in clothes. It's fun to remember to put. Don't be afraid to put those little. I guess seams is the word I'm looking for, or the little folds and bends and stuff. The way that the pocket flaps out like that, Now, there's a couple of things that you can do. I showed this recently in an image. I'll show it. Give me 1 second, and I'll bring it up. I keep it handy just to show, because it's a fun thing to do, but it's really kind of awkward for some people. So this is a lady that I drew for a page recently. So I drew her down in a ballpoint pen, and thanks, Paul. Welcome to the show, Paul Pete. Anybody? So I drew this older lady here, and on a page, and then I took some stamps, and I had actually stamped over top of her a number of times. Redrew some of those heavier lines back down again with the white highlights over top to bring those surface marks up even higher than the stamp marks. And then when I scanned it and I put it in the computer, I actually cut out the space around her. I copy the green color on the exterior, and then I trace it around her, and I just flatten it out. I take out all this ornate patterning. So the only patterning that you can see is inside of her dress. And so what that allows you is to create these individual and unique overlapping patterns and interesting effects on people without you having to explain those in any way. If you're going to do a pattern, if you're going to do a stamp of some kind, thanks very much, Paul. That's nice of you. If you're going to do a pattern of some kind, I'm a firm believer that you do not have to sit there and justify replicating that exact pattern again and again and again. I'm far more interested in that pattern either being applied flatly to an image or that pattern being whatever haphazard chaos it need be in order for you to get the point across that that person's outfit has a pattern on it. Now, this is the one stamp I have. The stamp that I did the lady's dress in is just this one, which is a sort of mandalic tree pattern. And yet you get these fantastic little bits, these overlapping bits inside of here. So I'm going to this is more of a fleur-de-lis looking thing. I have used this pattern already in the face. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this. That's fun. Good to see you, Paul. Sneaking away from work for a second there. So I'm going to take this pattern and I'm going to stamp it over the body, but I'm using this card, to diminish having the stamp go over top of the skin. I'm not worried about the exterior edge, like I just said, because of the fact that, it's not a big concern for me that the outside of the young man, because I'm going to cut it out anyways. But what is fun to me, and honestly, I'm not really overly concerned about going over the arms either. It's just, in fact, why don't I just do that now? So what this has given me, and I'm not going to do it over the pants because it's just that I want the pattern to not be on the pants. I want this to be a print on the shirt. One more. Oops, did that pick up? Let me see. I got something there. Okay, so I'll hold this up. Give me a second. Just cleaning off my stamp. What am I missing? Missing more conversation again. And Paul says, oh, never mind. Okay, so if I go back to, so here's the stamp pattern laid over top of the clothing, which gives this kind of really fun, different appearance on it, right? Now, if I come back in, as I go on throughout the image, and I lay in the area around it, but I leave the stamped clothing as flat as it is, all of that texture that's in there, I think, gives enough complexity to that area of the drawing that you really don't need to go back in and be overly concerned about doing an awful lot of the little fetching details inside there. So yeah, I've got a couple different colored stamps. I'm going to switch this guy out. Got my favorite color is an olive green, or a drab green, it's also called. And so I'm going to put some of that in here as well. Where am I? You're in your studio, Chris. Oh yeah. Okay. So I've got this gray. If I can get it open. We did it. So, I'm missing a lot here. I apologize, folks. Oh, thank you very much, Didi. That's nice. Yeah. Hey, thank you, Ro. Oops, missed it. There we go. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so now I've got this light gray, which I think as it's getting older, it's flattening out a little bit, but it starts as a gray. So I'm going to use that to put some of these, and it should dry lighter than it's going down wet. But I'm going to put some of these lines back in here, pick it and choosing where I want to put my marks. They don't have to be firm, opaque lines. They just don't. The idea comes across with just intimating that line, and the human eye fills in the rest, right? But as it dries, as this gray will dry in here, it'll start to fill in some of these directions. And it actually gives a little more weight to the pattern, and you'll see the pattern start to pick up a little bit. Now you could do some really soft washes into the flesh tone. That would help too, but I'll clean that up in a second. I like to build them up. There we go. Where the folds are, where the fabric spreads apart, is where you'll see some of those little shadows hide in there, right? How do you make stamps with designs? You print out the image, trace it out, and cut it. I'll show you. This is a monkey stamp that I just made, Frank. And hold on, I'll put that up in case for those that. There we go. Monday's an all-day online. Need to get a few things done. I don't blame you. I do not blame you. Thanks very much, Didi. Have a good day. How do you make stamps with designs? You print out the image and trace it out and cut it. So what I do is this: is I get a piece of linoleum. This is a piece of linoleum, like what's on your floor, but this is nice and flat and smooth. And I have a lino cutter, which has various cutting implements. And you gently press in and pull up the surface. And the area that you pull up doesn't print. The area that you leave down, those are your lines. So as I draw this monkey shape on here, realizing that the spaces that are kept clear is where there's not going to be black lines or whatever color I print it as. And so I take those areas back down again so that they don't make marks on the surface. But when I run some ink over this, I put it on with a nice roller, like nice and smooth, and I flip it over and I put it down on the surface and I put pressure on this, and that's what adheres that image to the surface. You know, that's the gist of it. You want to do it with some pressure. It's going to be reversed. Your image is going to be reversed. So if your monkey is looking to the right in your carving, then the monkey is going to be looking to the left in your print. Okay? Monkeys are crazy that way. So this is testing out a couple different inks with the kids. My grandkids were printing these for me. And so these are the ones that I submitted for the stamp swap that's on Dee Dee's channel. And I also made her a man card out of one of these. So, but this is the image. So this is the first... it's my first lino carving, so bear with me. I'll get, I think they'll get a little more involved as I go, but I really enjoyed doing this one. This was a lot of fun to learn how to do it on. I mean, I did it in high school, but that was years ago. So I gave this one a go. And then my grandkids drew some pictures on a piece of lino, and I carved theirs out for them. So I got a couple more pieces, and I'm going to get more because I enjoyed that mucho macho. So, okay, so back to this. So now that the ink has had the gray has had a moment to dry and to settle down, and you can see if I had better lighting, and I'm working on the lighting in the studio here, folks. It's a gray, it's not a black. Just like the dark lines that are in this is actually a cyan blue and a standard brown that make up those black, quote unquote, areas. So the other thing you can do if you want to put a little bit more life in the characters that you have in your images is reflections in the eyes. I'm sure everybody knows about this, but I tend to find a point, a highlight point, and I'll put that through both eyes. And all it takes is something as simple as that. And suddenly the eyes pop. The eyes sort of come alive. That's my theory. I'm trying to look over in the camera there. That's my theory anyways, folks. And, the different things that we do, right? Now, I've got these nice green stamps down on the young man's body. I've got some gray down there to give a little form and structure to the body. But what's more important than either of those things is that I have to go in and make sure that I bring up the skin and the remainder of the young man's form. And the more that you differentiate these different areas of the body, the more that each of them will stand on their own. You know what I mean, Vern? Mm-hmm. Yep. But when I'm doing these lines, like I said earlier, I'm not filling in the entire area of the line. I don't just trace the whole of the line. You don't have to, right? Because the average person looking at an image, especially if it's an image of a person, our eyes are going to fill in the missing parts. It's like if you write a word out of order and then ask somebody to read this, they might have to look at it for a second, but generally they can read a lot of those words. If they've got the right letters, they're just in the wrong order. It's a facility that we have in our brain to be able to process that information. Unless, of course, people have had accidents, and it's more challenging when it's not a first language, but there's some interesting things that the old human noggin can do. Okay, so putting in his little eyebrows, really thin lines, his little eyeballs. And again, I'm really being quite limited in the marks that I'm putting down in his face. The less marks that we have in a face, softer a face is, right? Right. Let's just finish this young guy up, and then off we go to the races. But it's like Didi, Monday's a big day for me too. So, all right. So I'm going to change up some of the marks around his mouth here. And the reason that I'm doing that is, one, because I'm cheeky, and two, because I want him to have a happy expression. So where I put that first line down, the first marks that I put down, the second marks aren't necessarily following, but that's because I want to change, give him a slight smile. Not doing an awful lot of lines on the outside of his face because it brings an awful lot of heavy focus on that face, on that part of the face. And I would much more be interested in you looking at the expression itself than the outline, the contour of the head. This kid's got a bad haircut. I like it, because kids have bad haircuts. That, and I tend to build up lines, so. I don't know about you, but I had an awful haircut when I was a kid. I got terrible hair now, but the only reason that my hair might have more style than I've ever put effort or intention into it is that it's curly. I can get away with a lot. So putting in those fingers, I like to leave little, so these two, the thumb and the forefinger, are connecting. And I haven't separated them with a line because I like those shapes. And sometimes we just need to think about stuff like that, the shapes and how they interact together. So I'm putting little marks into emphasis points. Again, soft features, soft little person. Don't need to fill in the whole line. Now, even though these are blue jeans, I'm coming in with some of these brown lines, and that's because these are going to be the areas that are tonally pushed back, shadows, right? So I want little emphasis points in the clothing as well. I hope that in any of the ways that I'm talking as I'm working, if it's a benefit for folks. But I hope that if anybody ever says, "What in the world are you on about?" right? You'll know. Hey, look out. Gary Hodges, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Gary. Welcome aboard. But if anybody has any questions, please let me know. Gary, the page that you suggested, I posted 2 versions of, Sunday and Monday. Had a lot of fun with that one. I was waiting for somebody to say, dude, you posted this twice. No one did. Got lots of observant people looking at stuff, and I appreciate it. Okay, so cleaning the ink off the nib again. Put the lids on your inks, folks. Okay, so I'll hold this up for a second. So the brown is still drying and settling down, and it will dry more flat in the places that you see heavier emphasis on those. It's just because it's still wet at the moment. But the same thing is going to happen in these brown areas on the kid's pants as has happened here around the kid's eyes. And that is when I go over the same lines with the cyan blue and the umber brown, it gives us a really, really dark charcoal color. Similar to a black, not quite black, but with enough contrasting emphasis that it feels like it's pushed that back. So, it works for us. So we're going to, so that's why we're going about it this way. I prefer not to just throw the black ink down unless it's a very specific highlight that I want. That's just me. I'm a fussy lady. What am I missing? Oh, thank you, Raul. Glad you love it. Not so much a double the post, double the views as it was those 2 pages are contradictory. So I did the same page 2 times. I'll show you really quick here. Having a snack. There we go. So this is Monday's page. The most sarcastic man in the world. If there's one thing that you can believe, it's to never trust those that are in authority. That's perspective A. And it goes on to elaborate that. And then perspective B, which was shown on Sunday, is if there's one thing that you can believe, you can always trust those in authority. And it goes on to elaborate in that regard. So, because to me, sarcasm, even if there's the slightest little snide twist or sarcastic undertone that people put, there's opaque sarcasm. There's cynicism. But at the same time, there's those people that when they say something, it might be so contradictory to your viewpoint that, you can't, it's so contradictory to your way of thinking. You're like, are you serious at all right now? Do you really truly believe those things? You seem to be delivering it with a great deal of conviction. So I like that notion a lot. And I know that Gary's suggestion was, I wrote it, it's somewhere. It's a man who's, he says things that sound so sarcastic and yet he believes it with such sincerity. I tried to pull it back to that root. So that's why a Sunday post and a Monday post. I don't know how many people are actually going to pick up on the fact that it's 2 separate takes. I really don't, because people tend to, and this is where the perils of the interweb comes in. People do that. They do the flickety flick, huh? And they don't actually stop to look at things, and they don't actually stop to engage in things for a moment. And when that happens, they miss out. So it was a fun thing to do. I have a whole bunch of pages that I'm finishing off right now. But I like the idea of continuing to introduce the most sarcastic man in the world into those pages, because it's a fantastic vehicle, this character that lets me speak through a narrative, from someone else, from someone else's perceived perspective. This character is saying these things. It's not me, but I can say all kinds of things. Because he's the most sarcastic man in the world. But it was my son Joshua who gave me that idea. He's 24. He said, "Why don't you look at the antithetical approach to that first page, Dad, as an alternative?" And I said, "Dad, smart idea. You smart." So I did it. So I'm just putting in some yellow, building up some of the little details in this young man's face. And then I'm going to come back in a second, and I'm going to pull some of them back out with the white. What time are we at? We're at 1:30. I'll just finish this image up here. So putting some shadows under his arm here. Putting a little bit of value into the back of his hand. A couple little hits in his fingers. Enhance that a little bit. You know, it's not, I don't put a lot of marks down on kids' fingers, forms in general, really, because I want them to be chubby. I want them to be soft and young and innocent and not jaded by this insufferable reality we live in. If you ever want to hear anybody describe contemporary society, just listen to Norm Macdonald. This suffering, pit of despair that we call life. And he says it like he's smiling when he says it. And it's just the funniest way anybody ever describes society. All right, so now I'm going back in with this blue. And we know for a fact from the previous image that the blue is going to dry and lighter than the marks that we're putting down. So don't feel like you have to. I'm sorry. Okay, no, I'm in frame. I apologize when I go out of frame, folks. I'm doing my best. And so where I've got this brown down, it's putting a little more depth to the marks that I'm putting down right now, which is nice. Very nice. Being conscious of where I've got the little guy's fingers. But since we've got this hash marks for as I'm building up the pants down below, it doesn't show as well as it does in person how light that blue is, and the much different pattern in the form of the young man. Again, like I said earlier, those contrasting approaches really allow us to see distinctly the shirt from the pants. And if you draw, so think about that. Think about those little textures. Think about those little. I used to always draw suits as big, flat, black body masses, basically. And over time, as I realized that it's the form, it's the actual physical, recognizable human form that sells that this person's in a big old black suit, then I paid a little more attention to what I was doing, and practice. So there's a real different way of making those characters, the same characters over pieces, over years, that they start to become far more and more defined. Now, if I were to go through here and do a light blue wash, leaving little embossed areas of white throughout, it would really fulfill that. But I'd have to let this dry and So, all right. So the last thing, a little bit of business I'm going to do here is twofold. I'm going to consider for a moment maybe putting some stars above his little noggin here, but I'm not going to do the red like I did before because of how opaque it is. I'm considering doing them in this nice olive green I described a few moments ago because it's really pretty. So, but the reason that I'm doing these marks, trying to get any ink off that surface. Yeah, it's pretty sufficiently red stamps. So I'm going to put this green on here. onto this surface, which is fairly red right now. And I'm going to put just a couple of marks around his face. Yeah, you can see the red really punching through. It's a red stamp after all. Okay, so that's fine. Clean as a whistle. So give that a second to dry. So some of the fun things, of course, is cutting out the form, which isn't really too blatantly obvious in this because of the lightness of the paper. But once you start to cut out that form, and you start to do a couple little things like a little pinch in there, soften that down a little bit. But these little marks that we put in really brings up those little features in the face. I don't know if you can see where I put the white down under the eyes. And then we can go back in now, so as the stamp is dried, and cut out, like we did over here in the first panel, cut that star out that we just stamped down. It's just for guys, just because it's fun. And it just sort of plays on this now it's just a repetitive pattern that moves throughout. For this kid's got stars in his eyes as he's looking with bewilderment at the machine McDonald's. So today's suggestion has been a child making a decision at a McD's electronic kiosk. And so I'm setting it up with this sort of fantastical, oh boy, I get to order some food. And then I get to pan back out as we see all the people going, standing behind the young man with those wonderful gestures of, oh my God, come on, right? That's part of the fun. And then, of course, when you're setting up images like that, the thing that allows you is because visually you're establishing this dialogue of, here's this enamored young person who's really excited about ordering some food and so on and so forth. And it's this wonderful moment. And because it's such a exhausting, repetitive thing for the individuals the adults that are around them, it allows you structurally with your narrative to sort of evaluate the joyfulness, the exuberance of new discovery in youth. And so that could be your dialogue point for how you're talking about the page. You're not just, oh, kids suck because they take so long to order. That's kind of just repeating the narrative structure that you've established visually, where if you want more complexity to whatever the structure it is of anything that you're trying to execute in storytelling, add a layer, add another layer. How you could even get a little more abstract with it and say, the illness that's plaguing the children across our country of the stars in their eyes has got to be stopped. No longer is it easy just to go to any public place without them holding up the entire process. I mean, that's where you can be similar-minded in your story, visually and textually. But at the same time, because of that weird abstraction to it, it takes it a little apart. So those are the kind of things that, I think about in the process of writing the page up, putting the text on pages as a secondary step, and it is at times divergent from the principal step of the visual element. So, and I think about those things as I'm creating. So that's the wonderful part about allowing yourself immersion in the process, is that it lets you build inside your mind. Right? Pancakes. So that's going to be it for me for today. I will be back at 2:00 tomorrow. We've got a ton of suggestions for this week. I'm really excited. There's lots of great stuff coming up. I've got a number from Chris Reimer. I've got a number from Dee Dee. We got a 3-word prompt for this week. Dee Dee has a suggestion: cat curling down the ice for Wednesday, which is fantastically ridiculous. But yeah, I'm really excited for a lot of these. Somebody kept suggesting a number of different things with sloths. Jurassic Park, but with giant sloths. The Matrix, but with sloths. With bullet time would be absolutely horrible, by the way, if it was sloths. Anyways, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of different decisions, a whole bunch of different options. Jim gave one today: the Artcaster hosts meet their alternate dimension selves. So just so much fun, right? But I'm going to get crack-a-lacking on these this week. In the interim, I'm excited. I got another book done today, so that's good news. But yeah, I look forward to chatting it up with anybody. If you just want a jar, let me know. Yeah, I'm down for it. But in the meantime, I'm going to get back to work. I hope you have a great day. Get back to creating on your own. I look forward to seeing it. Anybody that's doing one-page stuff or wants to share stuff with me, let me know. I'm not hard to find. And otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Take care so much. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it very, very much, everybody. Bye for now.